Welcome back to the garage. And if you're new here, this is Token Teardown. This is the show where we jack crypto projects up on the lift, shine a light underneath, and explain what's actually happening under the hood. Clear enough that the mechanic gets it, technical enough that the coder respects it. Because around here, when a project claims it's lightning fast, we don't just nod. We ask, what kind of machine are we talking about? Family sedan fast or track built, 1,000 horsepower Corvette fast? The kind that doesn't wait for green lights and doesn't apologize for it. And that matters today, because the project on the lift is Qubic. Real quick, before we drop this thing back on the ground, if you appreciate breakdowns that cut through the noise instead of adding to it, smash that like button. Or shine. Hit follow or subscribe. We're dropping 2 full token teardowns every single week. Reign and share this with your fellow crypto bros. You know the one. That one dude at the gym who's still pitching Shiba between sets, same shirt. Half the dog's head faded off. Neckline cooked, still holding, still early. Send it to him. We're trying to help, not judge. All right, today's teardown is a viewer request, and it's not a normal one. We're putting Qubic on the lift, a project people throw around phrases like insane throughput and AI mining about, without ever explaining what that actually means or what it costs to achieve it. So let's do what we do best. Lift it, lock it, lights on. Let's tear it down. Before we talk about what this machine actually does, we have to talk about who built it. Because in this garage, we don't fall in love with white papers or hype threads. We trust the people holding the wrenches. Qubic traces back to one very specific builder, Sergey Ivancheglo, known in crypto circles as Come From Beyond. And this matters. This isn't a founder who showed up during a bull run with a pitch deck and a Discord. This is an OG engineer, one of the early architects who was building distributed systems before most of the space even knew what proof of stake meant. He's the mind behind NXT, one of the earliest proof of stake networks, and a co-founder of IOTA, the project that tried to throw blockchains out entirely and redesign the whole system from scratch. In car terms, this isn't a tuner who learned on YouTube. This is a guy who's been machining engine blocks since before crypto had a driver's license. Now here's the part we don't dodge. Builders like this tend to come with sharp edges. Even Cheglo has a reputation for pushing radical designs, ignoring consensus when he thinks consensus is wrong, and walking away when governance starts watering down the engineering vision. That doesn't make him reckless. It makes him a purist. Think of him like a legendary race engineer who refuses driver assists, refuses compromise, and builds machines that are brutally fast, but not always comfortable. And the structure around Qubic reflects that mindset. There was no VC launch, no pre-mine, no quiet insider allocation. Tokens are produced through mining, not handed out in back rooms. That tells you something about intent. This project wasn't built to be pitched. It was built to work. But it also means there's no marketing department driving the car. This thing lives or dies on engineering discipline and community execution. So when you look at the crew behind Qubic, here's the honest takeaway. You've got elite technical pedigree, a no-compromise design philosophy, and a team willing to take real risks to build something different. That's powerful. It's also not for everyone. And now that you know who built the car, it's time to pop the hood and see how this thing actually runs. All right, now that we know who built it, let's talk about what this machine is actually trying to do. And before we go any further, let's clear this up cleanly. Qubic is a full layer 1. This is its own engine, its own drivetrain, its own track. Not a layer 2 riding Ethereum. Not a turbo bolted onto someone else's motor. Everything we're about to describe happens on Qubic itself. Now, Qubic is not trying to be a slightly faster version of the same old thing. It's trying to change how the engine works altogether. Most blockchains behave like traffic. Transactions line up. They wait their turn. You pay a toll, and eventually they move. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow. And sometimes the chain even changes its mind afterward, which is what people mean when they talk about reorgs. Qubic looks at that whole setup and says, yeah, we're not doing that. Instead of blocks, Qubic runs on what it calls ticks. Think of ticks like micro laps on a closed racetrack. The entire network moves in sync on a fixed clock. There are 676 computers watching every tick, and it takes 451 of them to agree. Once they do, it's done. No forks, no rollbacks, no actually never mind. In car terms, this isn't traffic lights. This is race control saying lap confirmed, keep moving. That's how Qubic goes after speed and certainty at the same time. Now layer in the next design choice. No gas fees for normal use. No meter running. No bidding wars just to get included. Instead of charging every time you turn the key, Qubic captures value at the edges, things like smart contract launches and heavy system actions. So the idea is simple. Let the engine run fast and free, and only charge when you're actually doing something serious. But the most radical part of this build is how Qubic handles mining. Most proof-of-work systems burn energy solving puzzles that don't matter. Qubic asks a different question. What if that work actually did something useful? So miners perform real computation, including AI-related work, and at the end of each week, the best performers earn the right to become computers, the ones who help run the network. In plain English, you don't get power just for showing up. You earn it by building horsepower. That's like saying only the drivers who proved speed this week get a seat on the grid next week. It's harsh, but it's intentional. And when you step back and look at the whole build, here's what Qubic is really aiming for. Instant finality, massive throughput, no everyday fees, mining that actually produces something useful, and a network where power is earned, not bought. That's not a tweak. That's a ground-up redesign. And ground-up builds always raise the same question. Not, is it fast, but who's actually driving this thing right now? That's where we go next. All right, now we know what Qubic is and how it's built, so here's the only question that matters next. Who's actually using it? Because a track car with no laps is still just a garage build. Right now, Qubic is not a chain full of casual users tapping buttons on their phone. This is a builder-first, operator-first network, and the people using it today fall into three real groups. First, miners and operators. These are not hobby miners running a laptop in the background. These are serious compute operators competing every week to earn a spot as computers, the group that actually helps run the network. That tells you something important. People are committing real hardware, real power, and real time to participate. That's not speculation. That's infrastructure commitment. Second, early system-level apps and DeFi experiments. Qubic already has live smart contracts, and they don't launch quietly. When a new contract goes live, it does so through that IPO-style auction, where Qubic tokens are bid and burned to activate the contract. That's real usage. Tokens are being destroyed because someone wants functionality, not because of hype or marketing. Now, this is still early. You're not seeing thousands of meme apps. You're seeing a handful of serious builds launched deliberately with skin in the game. Third, researchers and experimental builders. This is the group most people miss. Qubic attracts developers who care about things like deterministic finality, synchronized execution, useful proof of work, and performance under load. These are not copy-paste developers. These are builders who don't mind sharp edges if the machine does something genuinely new. Now, let's be clear. Qubic is not a mass adoption chain today. You're not onboarding millions of retail users tomorrow. You're not replacing Visa next week. This is more like an early race program. The engine is real. The track exists. The pit crew is working, but the grandstands aren't full yet. And that's not automatically a problem. It just tells you where this project is in its life cycle. So let's say this cleanly. Qubic is built for people who want performance over comfort, control over convenience, and earned power over bought influence. If you want polish and handholding, there are better options. If you want a machine that prioritizes speed, finality, and discipline, this is the lane. And once you understand that, it sets up the next question we have to ask honestly. If this thing is built like a track car, what can go wrong? That's where we go next. Before we get to the risks and the numbers, we need to talk about something just as important: the narrative and the community carrying it. Because in crypto, technology alone doesn't win races. Stories do. Qubic's community is not loud and it's not flashy. There are no meme armies, no influencer campaigns, no coordinated hype cycles. What you get instead is a small, technical, conviction-driven group. Miners, operators, builders, and long-term believers who care more about how something works than how it trends. In car terms, this isn't a cars and coffee crowd. This is a track day garage. Fewer people, more tools, more opinions, and a lot less patient for nonsense. Now let's talk narrative. Qubic doesn't fit cleanly into the usual crypto storylines. It's not DeFi summer, NFT culture, GameFi, meme season. Its narrative is closer to this: performance over polish, work over capital, determinism over convenience. The useful proof of work angle puts Qubic next to AI and compute. That this isn't a consumer AI project. It's selling infrastructure. That distinction matters. Right now, the AI narrative here is about rails, not traffic. The foundation exists, even if the apps aren't loud yet. And the community understands that. This is a group that's comfortable being early, quiet, and a little misunderstood. On the upside, that means less hype, less tourist capital, and stronger technical alignment. On the downside, it means slower narrative momentum and very little retail buzz. So here's the honest read. Qubic's community isn't here to pump. It's here to build and defend a philosophy. And that philosophy is simple. If crypto is going to matter long-term, performance, determinism, and useful computation have to matter more than vibes. That doesn't guarantee success, but it does explain why this project keeps existing quietly while louder ones come and go. And once you understand that community and narrative, the risks make more sense, the numbers make more sense, and the dino results make more sense. Now, let's talk about what can go wrong. If Qubic is a track-built machine, we have to talk about what can break. First, complexity. Qubic is not plug and play. There's no soft onboarding, no handholding, no click, deploy, and pray. This system assumes you know what you're doing, or you're willing to learn fast. That's great for builders. It's friction for everyone else. In car terms, this isn't an automatic commuter. It's a manual transmission with a stiff clutch. If you stall it, that's on you. Second, weekly epochs and downtime. Qubic runs in weekly cycles, and during those transitions, the network can experience downtime. For experimentation and research, that's acceptable. For always-on, mission-critical applications, it's a real limitation. The goal is to smooth this over time, but until that happens, it's a constraint you have to price in. Think of it like a scheduled pit stop every race weekend. It can be strategic, or it can cost you positions. Third, governance and concentration risk. Qubic relies on roles like computers and an arbitrator to keep the system fast and disciplined. That structure is powerful, but it also concentrates authority. This doesn't mean the system is broken. It means governance matters more here than on chains that hide behind loose automation. Fourth, execution risk. This design is ambitious. Useful proof of work, AI-oriented computation, a radically different consensus model. All of it has to ship, stabilize, and attract builders. Fast engines don't matter if you never leave the garage. And finally, narrative risk. Qubic doesn't play nicely with trends. If the useful compute and AI narrative lands, it looks early and smart. If it doesn't, critics will call it experimental. That's the cost of building something different. So here's the honest takeaway. Qubic trades simplicity for performance, comfort for control, and mass appeal for engineering discipline. None of those are automatic deal breakers, but they do mean this project won't succeed by accident. And that brings us to the next question we have to answer clearly. If this machine is complex and performance-driven, how does the fuel system actually work? Who gets paid? Who gets diluted? And what gets burned? Let's talk tokenomics next. All right, now we need to talk about tokenomics, which is just a fancy way of asking, how does the fuel system work? Because it doesn't matter how fast the engine is if the gas tank leaks. First thing to understand about Qubic is that the numbers look wild at first glance. Huge supply, lots of zeros. That's because Qubic has no decimals. 1 cubic is the smallest unit. So instead of measuring fuel in drops, this system measures in gallons. Big number, same engine. Now let's clear up unlocks, because this is where people usually get confused. Qubic does not have traditional unlocks. There's no VC allocation waiting to dump, no team vesting schedule, no cliff dates where insiders suddenly get liquid. New supply enters circulation through mining, not unlocks. Think of it like this. Most projects store fuel in a warehouse and release it on a calendar. Qubic produces fuel in real time as work gets done. Early on, emissions are higher to bootstrap the network. Over time, those emissions are reduced through halvings. That's the system tightening the fuel line as the engine matures. Now, let's talk about the other side of the equation, burns. Qubic doesn't just print tokens and hope demand magically shows up. When new smart contracts launch, they do so through IPO-style auctions. People bid using Qubic tokens. Those tokens don't go to a treasury. They don't get recycled. They get burned, permanently removed from supply. So the system is intentionally designed like this. Mining adds fuel. Network expansion burns fuel. Real usage determines balance. In car terms, you can rev the engine, but every time you install a new performance part, fuel gets consumed. That's not accidental. That's discipline. Now, who does this fuel system actually reward? It rewards miners who contribute real compute, builders who ship real contracts, operators who keep the machine running. What it does not reward very well is passive behavior. This isn't a buy it and forget it token by design. It's a race program. If you're building, operating, or contributing, the system works in your favor. If you're just sitting in the stands, you're betting other people will do the work. So when you step back and look at Qubic's tokenomics honestly, the takeaway is clean. No VC unlock bombs. Supply comes from mining, not cliffs. Emissions tighten over time. Burns are real and tied directly to expansion. It's not simple, but it is coherent. Now, before we roll this thing onto the dyno, there's one more question we have to answer. How does this machine evolve? And how does it stack up against the other layer ones out there? Because speed today doesn't matter if you can't upgrade tomorrow. Qubic doesn't upgrade like most blockchains. Instead of chaotic forks or endless governance debates, Qubic operates on weekly epochs. Think of an epoch like a scheduled rebuild window. Every week, the system can recalibrate roles, tune performance, and roll out changes deliberately. Right now, those transitions can cause downtime, and yes, that's a trade-off. But philosophically, this tells you everything you need to know. Qubic chose discipline and coordination over pretending nothing ever stops. It's the difference between doing scheduled pit stops and driving until something breaks. Now, how does Qubic compare to other layer ones? Most popular layer ones optimize for accessibility. Ethereum prioritizes decentralization and security and pays for it with fees and congestion. Solana prioritizes throughput and accepts complexity and instability as the cost. Others optimize for developer convenience, compatibility, or composability. Qubic is playing a different game. It prioritizes deterministic finality, synchronized execution, performance earned through work, and tight control over who participates in consensus. This isn't a general-purpose app mall. It's a performance platform. In car terms, Ethereum is the reliable production sedan. Solana is the aggressive daily driver with sharp edges. Qubic is the track car, uncomfortable for errands, unforgiving if you don't know what you're doing, but built to perform when pushed, and that's intentional. Qubic isn't trying to beat other layer ones at their own game. It's trying to do what most of them avoid: tight coordination, strict timing, earned power, and extreme performance. That doesn't make it better at everything. It makes it different by design. And now that we understand the fuel system, the upgrade philosophy, and where this thing sits in the Layer 1 landscape, there's only one thing left to do. Roll it onto the dyno, put real numbers on the gauges, and let Lulu tell us what happens if the entire crypto market grows. That's next. All right, now let's put real numbers on this thing, because Lulu doesn't do vibes. First, we anchor to today. Right now, the total crypto market is sitting at about $2.98 trillion. Qubic today is trading at roughly 6/10,000ths of a cent, with a market cap just under $100 million and about 130 billion tokens circulating. That puts Qubic at a tiny slice of the overall crypto market, basically a rounding error in dominance terms. And that matters, because what we're about to do is relative math, not wishful thinking. So Lulu rolls the dyno forward and says, all right, let's imagine the entire crypto market grows to $20 trillion. That's roughly a 6 to 7x expansion from where we are today. Now, the question isn't, can Qubic go up? The question is, what does Qubic do inside that bigger world? First scenario, the boring but honest one. Crypto grows. Qubic works. Nothing breaks. But Qubic keeps the same market share it has today. In that case, Qubic's market cap rises right along with the market to roughly $500 million. With the current circulating supply, that works out to a price around 4/10 of a cent. Lulu's take? That's not hype. That's just math. Second scenario, Qubic does a little better than average. Not a moonshot, not a headline grab, just steady adoption. Builders show up, more contracts launch. Burns start stacking. In that world, Qubic roughly doubles its current dominance. Now you're looking at a market cap around $1 billion, which puts the price in the neighborhood of just under 1 cent. Lulu's take? That's what happens when the engine does exactly what it was built to do. Third scenario, the asymmetric upside. This is where things actually get interesting. Crypto grows to 20 trillion and Qubic meaningfully gains attention. Useful proof of work starts to matter. AI compute demand becomes real. Burns begin to seriously offset emissions. In that case, Qubic captures about 10 times its current share of the market. That puts the market cap in the $5 to $6 billion range, which translates to a price around 4 cents. That's not normal growth. That's a re-rating. Lulu's take? That only happens when the track car finally gets a real track. And now the one nobody likes to hear, the black swan. Crypto grows, but Qubic underperforms. Maybe adoption stalls. Maybe execution slips. Maybe governance friction turns people off. In that case, Qubic actually loses market share, even in a bull market. That puts the market cap closer to $200 to $300 million, and the price around 2/10 of a cent. Lulu's take? Fast engines still lose races if they don't finish. So here's the clean summary in human terms. If Qubic just keeps pace with the market, you get modest upside. If it earns a little more attention, returns improve. If it truly breaks out, the upside is asymmetric, and if execution fails, the market leaves it behind. No dates, no guarantees, no hopium, just math wrapped in a dyno pull. And remember, this is not financial advice. Lulu is a pig, and if you're taking price targets from a pig in a garage, that one's on you. Starting with the vision and build sheet, Qubic scores 8.5 out of 10. This project isn't copying anyone. Ticks instead of blocks, deterministic finality, useful proof of work. This is a real ground-up rethink of how a Layer 1 can function. The ambition is clear, the philosophy is coherent, and the target is focused. The only reason it doesn't score higher is because designs this bold still have to prove long-term durability under real-world load. On the pit crew and builders, Qubic earns an 8 out of 10. There's real engineering pedigree here. This isn't a hype house team chasing narratives. It's builders who care about systems. The trade-off is that strong conviction and tight control mean execution discipline matters more than usual. High credibility, slightly less forgiveness. On technology and drivetrain, this is where Qubic shines. 9 out of 10. Synchronized execution, supermajority finality, no reorgs, and power earned through work instead of capital. Coders respect this immediately, and once it's explained, mechanics get it too. The only thing keeping this from a perfect score is complexity. Fast, precise systems are less forgiving by nature. On tokenomics and the fuel system, Qubic scores an 8 out of 10. No VC unlocked bombs, no surprise cliffs. Supply comes from mining. Emissions tighten over time, and burns are tied directly to network expansion. This is disciplined design, not a casino model. It loses a couple tenths only because early emissions still require real adoption to fully balance out. On upgrades and layer 1 positioning, Qubic lands at 7.8 out of 10. Weekly epochs act like scheduled rebuild windows. That allows fast evolution and clean internals, but it comes with coordination costs and downtime. Compared to other layer 1s, Qubic isn't trying to win popularity, it's carving out a performance lane. Strong philosophy, still proving execution. On community and narrative, the score is 7.2 out of 10. This is a small, technical, conviction-driven community. No meme army, no influencer hype, no artificial buzz. That's excellent for builders, slower for awareness. The narrative fits performance and infrastructure, not retail mania, which caps near-term momentum but increases long-term alignment. On adoption and real-world usage, Qubic earns a 6.5 out of 10. There are real miners, real operators, and real contracts. But this is still an early race program. The engine is built, the track exists, but the grandstands aren't full yet. Adoption has to grow for everything else to compound. On risk profile, Qubic scores a 7 out of 10. The risks are real. Complexity, governance concentration, execution pressure. But they're known risks, not hidden ones. Nothing here is disguised. This is a project that succeeds through discipline, not luck. When you total it all up, Qubic earns a final garage score of 7.6 out of 10. That puts it firmly in the category of tuned up and worth watching. Not a showroom fake, not a meme, not finished, but very real. So here's what we actually think. Qubic is not built to win popularity contests. It's built to solve problems most chains avoid because they're hard. This is a performance-first layer 1, designed for builders who care more about determinism, speed, and discipline than comfort or polish. The upside exists because it's difficult. The risk exists because it's difficult. If real compute demand shows up, if builders lean in, and if execution stays tight, Qubic has a legitimate lane. If not, it doesn't implode. It just stays niche while louder projects soak up attention. That's the trade. And before we shut the bay doors, check out the website, gurusiptogarage.guru. It's free. We're building it as a resource to help people understand what's actually happening in crypto without hype or noise. We update it constantly with our latest insights. Real-time pricing is still a work in progress, but it's coming. Tell us what you think, what you like, what you want added. And if this breakdown helped you at all, smash the like, hit follow. We drop 2 token teardowns a week. And share this with your fellow crypto bros, especially that one guy at the gym still rocking the half-faded Shiba shirt. You know the one. Drop the next project you want us to put on the lift in the comments. And remember, this is not financial advice. Lulu is a pig. And if you're taking investment advice from a pig in a garage, that one's on you. Engines hot, safety off. Let it rip.